first thing I want to raise is the Before I Die campaign. It's like Senator Clonan, I think it's an issue of huge concern. This campaign was established by elderly parents who are caring for an adult son or daughter in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, and they're just concerned what is going to happen to this son or daughter when they die. And I mean, it's a right of every person to have an option to live independently anyway. And it seems like, you know, if they're quite people who don't maybe quite know how to go around, you know, accessing housing, they're just forgotten about, and it's left to them. It's their responsibility. I mean, I've spoken to many parents whose son or daughter is on the county council housing list in their local area, and when I engaged with the local authority, they said, "Look, we have houses ready to allocate to people. Some of them don't need to be adapted if there isn't a physical disability, but a lot of the people will need some sort of a care plan. So that might just be a support worker, or it might be a more full-time carer. And in order to do that, whether it's through their own stock or through a AHB, they need the HSE to engage with them and put that support plan in place. And that is not happening. Now, when Housing for All was launched, for example, in the last Dáil term, we were assured that there would be better cooperation between local authorities and HSE to ensure that this was happening. That's not happening on the ground. And there's clear frustration there with the local authorities who said, you know, they organised a meeting with the HSE to discuss the allocation of housing and putting the support plan in place. My own cabin, but I'm sure it's happening across the board. And then, at very short notice, the HSE don't turn up at the meeting. And so there's very little engagement. Now, I have contacted the HSE in my area, the integrated health area is Cavan Monaghan, and asked them for a breakdown on numbers in the area. They tell me that there's 87 people from Cavan who are somehow engaged as service users who have a disability who require housing. I'm not sure if that's the full full number, or if that's just who they know of. And they said there are 25 emergency cases. Now, I'm assuming emergency case means that the parent has passed away or is no longer able to care for this person, which means that the son or daughter with an intellectual disability or with autism or a physical disability or a combination of all, it ends up being placed in a residential setting that could be outside the county, so they're not able to attend their day service, or they're not able to see family and friends, they're not able to live in their own community. And there are quite a number also, I forget the exact number, but there's quite a number, it could be up to 20 Cavan people who are placed in residential settings outside the county. And I know many of them want to come back and live in Cavan, and were told at the time that this was a temporary measure and that they would be, you know, facilitated in Cavan when something becomes available. But when you query those, you're told, oh no, they're settled, they're okay, they're already accommodated. But that's not their wishes. And it's not the wishes of their family either. I mean, I spoke to one man who's 79 and is caring for his daughter who's in her early 40s, and she attends a day's service, but he says, I'm not able anymore. And I mean, there's a dignity question here as well. Like, it's a man caring for his daughter. I mean, while carers come in at certain times of the day, it's set times to shower her or dress her. They're not there all of the time when she requires, you know, washing or so on. And like he's saying, like, you know, he's so afraid, and as so many other parents are, that if something happens to them and they pass away, their son or daughter is not only just grieving for them, they're actually trying to then, you know, get used to a new setting where they might know nobody, might be far away from everything that's familiar, and it's just something that needs to be dealt with immediately. And you know, it's not just about money; it's about, you know, different agencies working together to make sure this happened. And we also still have quite a number of people in congregated settings. And I think it was 2018 was a time to move on from congregated settings. Like we're what, 8 years into that, and there's still people in congregated settings. In relation to the CDNTs. Again, I know there's been you know, improvements in the staffing levels in the CDNTs, but they're still not staffed to 100%. And I think speech and language is a huge issue of concern, but there are not enough speech and language therapists. I'm not sure that even the initial makeup of the teams is actually sufficient to deal with the increased demand and a significant backlog. Like you said, that the backlog has come down, but there's over 9,000 on waiting list now, still 9,000 children. One mother told me that, you know, when her daughter was about 18 months, she realised that there was an issue with her speech, and she brought her to be assessed. She was autistic, is autistic, and was practically pre-verbal. She had about 5 different words. So she was in a position to access a private speech and language therapist for her daughter. And her daughter is now about 7 or 8, and she is speaking perfectly. So which proves that if children at an early age get the interventions that they need, they can overcome a lot of the issues. And I know a lot of children are very frustrated and often, will lash out in a school setting or a different setting because of their lack of ability to communicate. So I think speech and language, or finding alternative ways to communicate, whether it's through AT or whatever it is very important. And again, that's not happening on a wide-scale basis to ensure that children can live their best lives and cope with whatever's coming up, whether it's in a school setting or whatever it is. In relation to, I know primary care doesn't come under, your department is under help, but there has to be a connection between it again. And again, I see children there waiting, for years for an appointment to be seen by a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, or speech and language, and it's the same across the board. And I'm also concerned there's a habit by the CDNTs of saying, that they've had contact with a child, or that the child have had X number of appointments. And it may just be an engagement with the parents, it may just be phone calls. I mean, it's not necessarily one-to-one therapy that the child needs. And, that needs to be addressed as well. It's almost like painting a better picture than it clearly is. While cost of disability is strictly under a different department again, it is a huge issue. I mean, we saw where in a couple of budgets, like last year and the year before, where there were additional payments made. There were energy credits, like that lots of people got, or everybody got, but there were also additional payments made to people on disability payments. And then, we heard a lot about disability in the general election campaign of 2024. And then first budget introduced by a new government, and there's nothing in it for people with disability. And I mean, they say about €1,400 on average is the amount that they feel that they are actually down on previous years. And we need to see a stable payment, a payment that's there, a cost of disability payment that recognises the significant additional costs to families who have a disabled member. Because, there was a whole in the Indicon cost of disability payment research was done into this, and the difference between the cost to a family without a person with a disability and the cost to a family with are huge and are only increasing as the cost of living increases. I suppose just to say as well, insufficient carers on the ground. I know you said that there's going to be increased supports for carers, but we don't have enough of them. And I think we really do need to look and see how can we get like home carers or home support carers going in. One woman was in contact with me. She's a wheelchair user, but she's been very independent all her life, but she has issues now. She's getting older and she needs support. She's been approved for home care hours, but no carer available to provide the hours. So, I mean, we just need to see thinking outside the box of how we can get more people to actually take on caring roles in the community.
Thank you very much, Senator.